Leani, we have a possible issue. I am detecting about 150 entities, Jason said after a few more minutes of walking. They are currently moving along the road at a high speed. Do you want to intercept? Leani thought it over. They were still a good 10 minutes from the city, but a large number of knights moving fast could be an issue. Yes, move to the road. Close the door for now, she said as she felt the shift of weight as the massive armor changed direction. Can you show me the outside? 1 second. He said, then some kind of image magic appeared on the metal wall in front of her. As they got on the road, the image shifted, and the sight of a formation of knights fully equipped and riding hard. But their leader was the issue. She had hoped it would be her mother, but instead, it was her eldest sister. Can you allow me to speak outside the armor? Squeeze my arm when you wish for them to hear you, he said, and she noticed her sister's formation slowed. Squeezing his arm, she heard her voice ring out and towards the formation. Hello, sister. As you can see, we have handled the No-Guard. The town of Osmer is no longer in danger, and we are returning to Shreki to present it to our mother. Her sister shifted a bit. Leani noted the anger on her face, but was caught off guard by her words. 12th Princess, you are hereby charged with reaching over your station. You will surrender and unsummon the monster you are controlling. Failure to do so will be considered treason, and we will execute you on the spot. Leani sunk back, her mind drawing a blank. Why is this happening? Princess, we can win if we fight, but I can't guarantee that I will not kill anyone, Jason said from next to her. However, we did get the order from your mother, so message her and check. Leani didn't think of that and summoned the message spell. Mother, I am being stopped by the Crown Princess. She claims that I am being charged with breaking the line of tasks. However, it was your messenger that had relayed your order. She heard Jason speak through the giant armor. We are verifying your claims. We had acted under Her Majesty's orders. Please stay still. Then the image she was looking through flickered, and her sister was outlined along with a box that said something in an unknown language. Then he spoke right to her, locking her sister out of the conversation. The readout says your sister is ready to fight, basically waiting for us to say no. Leani looked at the image and frowned, however. Her mother's reply gave an answer, one she was not ready for. I did not. You had acted on your own before I was even informed of the growing situation. However, my spies have uncovered the origin of the orders. The Crown Princess had done it with a bribe. I will allow you to choose how to handle this, however. We can't lose too many knights right now. Leani let out a slew of insults into the air, but Jason's voice next to her snapped her away from her ranting. What happened? This is a trap. Our orders were from my sister to make it look like I am going against tradition, she said after a second, then squeezed his arm. Crown Princess, I have verified your order, and the Queen has allowed me to handle this situation. You are now being charged with impersonation and bribery of the Queen and her household. You are to stand down and be taken back to the Queen to stand trial. Failure to comply will result in your immediate execution. Princess, do you want me to kill her if she fails? Jason asked. Yes, but avoid killing the knights. They have not done anything, she said quietly before she started praying while watching her sister. She heard the moving of the left arm of the armor, and a small X settled on her sister, while a second one positioned on her mount. Jason spoke, his voice ringing out with a terrible amount of force. Surrender now, you can't beat us. You knights are now under the direction of the 12th Princess and will escort the Crown Princess back to Shreki by order of Her Majesty. Leani watched as a clear circle started to form around her sister, who was still glaring back at them, and the display beside her changed. Princess, she is not backing down, Jason said. Leani didn't want to do this. While she never liked this sister, she was still her sister. As rude and aggravating as this sister could be, mainly because of being the eldest and by extension the most well-trained and experienced. However, as a princess, she had a duty to perform, so she reluctantly squeezed on his arm. Sister, stand down. I do not want to have to use force, please. You have until the count of 5. 5. She watched as her sister glanced around. The knights had backed away from her and then looked back at them. 4. Her sister then shifted a bit in her saddle and gripped her lance a bit tighter, her face growing angrier. 3. Then the Crown Princess started trying unsuccessfully to cast something under her breath. 2. Leani frowned as the spell her sister was planning to use was a paralysis spell, and it harmlessly didn't work as the armor was not a living being. 1. Her sister reared her mount and started a charge, her lance leveling on the head of the armored monster. I hereby execute you for the crime of impersonation and bribery of the Queen's household, Leani said, but looked away, a few tears slipping free as the twin claps of thunder rang. I am sorry, Princess, Jason said a second after, then spoke through the armor to the assembled knights. Take her remains with you and return to Shrekki. Do not act in disrespect or dishonor towards her. Leani couldn't hold it and quietly asked, Can they hear me in here? No, and I will not say a word. They are also leaving and we can wait, Jason said, and brought his other hand around her. Leani didn't want to do that. Even though she wanted the title of the crown princess, she didn't want her sister's death, as unrealistic as it was. She wanted to prove her worth, to show the family she could handle as much as them, and more. But this hate for her that forced her hand was too much. She slowly turned in their seat and hugged him tight as her tears slipped away, her hidden grieving of a sister and the pain of being the one to commit that act. And all the while he held on, cradling her head and rubbing at her back. She wanted to undo this, to go back and change fate, to make this right. But that is not how time works, and what has happened couldn't have happened any other way. After longer than she wanted, she shed the last of her tears and pulled back, seeing his face freed of the helmet he was wearing. She finally noticed that aside from the window above them, the inside was a near pitch black. And in the small column of light that framed their faces, she saw him. A new expression, one she didn't know about, plagued him as he reached up a hand and wiped away a tear that lingered on her cheek. I am sorry for your loss. I am not sure what your relationship with her was, but you are not wrong for being in pain over this, he said slowly, his hand still holding her a bit. Leani wasn't sure why those words were actually comforting to her, but that didn't matter now. Thank you for, holding me just now. Let's get moving, she said slowly as he let her go, and she settled back in after turning around once more. She heard the helmet enclosed around his head before the armor came back to life, and the magic display flickered on again. The road was empty and clear of the knights, and her sister's body was evidently taken too. Then the armor moved, and the world of this confined space rocked as it strode onwards. She considered her next actions and thought over her chances. On one side, she had acted on her own initiative, but she should have reported to the Queen about her plans and checked for approval prior to going after the No-Guard. But she had assumed that the order was from the Queen, so acted as such. Normally, that would not be an issue, however. She would have still technically broken from tradition, as she would be expected to seek the counsel of her family and offer the chance for glory to someone more skilled, which in her family was everyone but her. But she didn't. She had to go off on her own and pick a fight, and in doing so, publicly snubbed her older and more experienced sister. Worse still, she and Jason succeeded effectively, at least to the public, making it seem like her sister was not as great as she claimed to be, an insult to her wounds. Then, due to the break from tradition, her sister came out here to get her to recant her sins and apologize. A perfectly made web to undermine her or kill her off. A brilliant display of the cutthroat politics of the royal family. A trap made with a clear and well-laid plan, one she had run headlong into. She has to be more careful of the future. While she may not see much more progress over the next half a year while Jason prepares his army, she would need to be cautious of everything she hears. The real question was how her mother would handle the loss of the crown princess. The line of succession is based on the number of daughters, and while she is not the youngest, she was, and maybe still is, considered the weakest. And your place is chosen by the Queen alone. One way to move your rank is to kill one sister off, but that normally didn't start until the Queen started to show signs of the life-end kiss, which her mother would not have for the next 50 years. She, however, always planned to rise in rank by merit, as she wanted to see her sisters bend the knee to her. But having lost the chance to see her sister be shocked at losing her rank did make her both mad and sad. Princess, the gates are open, and we have a welcoming party waiting, Jason said, making her look up into the display. The welcoming party was most of the advisors and vizier, along with her mother front and center. But she didn't look happy, but not mad either. While she did feel a bit better to see her father in the ranks of the advisors, she focused on her mother, quickly wiping away at her face to clear any signs of tears, and set her hair back behind her and made sure her braid was still set. Then spoke softly, "Stop a good distance away, and then let me down, then follow behind me, and let me do the talking." The door popped before she noticed the hand come up over the display. Climbing slowly out, she grabbed the pack as she got out. Standing on the hand, she watched as the crowd looked on in a mixture of horror and awe, except for her mother, who maintained her expression. Leani didn't mind as she stepped off and started walking forward. She was still a bit far, but that was good. It would allow a show of force, and she walked with confidence, chin leveled and eyes forward. But she did feel a bit nervous every time the ground shook under her. The weight and power of the giant armor sent a shiver through her. But Jason was her summoned champion, and trusted she would be safe even with the monster he was controlling. As they started to get within speaking range, the stomps stopped. She took a knee a few seconds later and heard the wet slap of the head of the massive beast set just a bit behind her and to the right. But the queen and her entourage looked shocked as the sound of screeching metal cut behind her. Taking the chance, she noticed that Jason had somehow made the massive suit of armor take a knee too. She looked back to her mother and spoke aloud. "Your Majesty." She noticed that her mother refocused on her. "We had gone to the city of Osmer to end the threat of a no-guard. I would like to gift you with its head, as it is by your will that the town was saved. The battle of my ranger and the no-guard was a clash of titans, and the ground and walls shook at the exchange of blows. But we succeeded in the end and made our way back. However, during our return, we were intercepted by the crown princess. We then found out that the orders we believed we were acting on were not from you. We request that you forgive our breach of your power and only acted for the benefit of the nation." Her mother's expression broke for a second before it hardened up again. "I see. I was informed that you had to end the crown princess. What were the charges?" she asked in an emotionless tone. Leani took a breath. It was the tricks of her mother. No one but her and her daughters knew about the spy network she had. "The crime of impersonation of yourself, your Majesty, and the crime of bribery of your household. She was offered a chance to face you in a trial but chose to fight. My ranger executed her under my order. Her body should have been returned here. However, while it will offer little comfort, know that the crown princess did not suffer, as my ranger's weapons cut her down clean and quick." There was a bit of silence where only the light rumbling of the armored giant was heard before her mother spoke again. "12th Princess Leani, you are forgiven for the act of familicide, as you did so for an acceptable reason, and your break of my authority is also forgiven. However, I will not be rewarding you or your ranger for the services you have rendered to the nation. Do you object to this ruling?" Leani looked down and bit at her lip. This was the way it was, which means she would not advance up, and their battle with the no-guard would be a tale told but not acknowledged as a service to the queen, thus stripping them of any merit they would have earned. "No, your Majesty, your rule and rights are absolute. I would never act against such a graceful decision." "Good. You may leave that head here and return to your estate. Start on the army you promised, and we will see how the future unfolds," the queen said before wheeling her mount and going into the city. She stood back up and watched her while the armored giant moved, then stopped rumbling, followed a bit after by the grunts of Jason, and felt his hand land on her shoulder. "You okay?" he asked from behind her. Leani nodded, then turned to face him. "When she looked at me after I told her about Irena's death, she looked proud for a second," she said as she thought over the interaction. "Is it bad that she looked proud?" Jason asked hesitantly. Leani shook her head and gave an uncertain answer. "I don't know. I have never seen her look proud of anyone."